Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we're breaking down every major mechanic in Wizard 101 in 2025. From pips, school identity, shadow mechanics, spellments, crit, pip conversion, arc mastery, and more. If you haven't played in a while, this is basically a different game now, and if you're new, this will save you weeks of confusion. Let's start simple and build up. Before we start, if this video helps you, please drop a like and a sub. The goal is to hit 1,000 subscribers before the end of the year, and every one of you count. Anyways, back to the video. Mana, health, and basic stats. Your character has 3 core resource bars. Your health, which if you lose all of it, you end up losing battles. Mana, which lets you enter battles and cast spells for combat. And energy, which can be used on pets, gardening, fishing, and other side activities. This is a pretty simple foundation. Now let's move on to the good stuff. You have your pips, your power pips, and your school pips. These are some of the most important parts of the game now. Pips are a basic resource. Every turn in battle, you gain 1, and the basic white pip counts as 1 pip total. We all know that spells cost pips to cast, and this is the least efficient way of casting them. Then, there are power pips. Power pips are yellow pips that count as 2, but only for your main school. So if you're a life wizard, your power pips will only count towards life spells. On other school spells, it will still count as 1 pip. Finally, the newest addition are school pips. With Arc Mastery, you can now generate colored pips, which represent a specific school. For example, you have fire pips, life pips, myth pips, and etc. Modern spells require school pips. If you don't have the right school pip, you cannot cast a spell, even if you have enough pips for it overall. This is why Arc Mastery matters. Arc Mastery is the core of modern systems. It determines how fast you can turn power pips into school pips, which off-school spells you can realistically carry and use, and how flexible your deck is. You start naturally gaining Arc Mastery around level 50. Instead of having to sock in Arc Mastery Jewel in your gear, you'll have a basic rating. The easiest way to unlock Arc Mastery early is to head to Wizard City's shopping district, go into the gem shop, and to buy a cracked Arc Mastery Jewel and sock it into your gear at level 15. A good rule of thumb to follow is, if your Arc Mastery is low, your deck can be slow and clunky. However, with a higher Arc Mastery rating, your deck can flow a lot smoother between multiple spells from multiple schools. I also briefly wanted to touch on school identity because we are bringing up Arc Mastery. School identity has been on the decline recently. Any wizard from any school can learn all main spells from another school, which has put a stop to major school identities. However, here are the main mechanics from each school and what they do. Fire is the damage over time school, a school that hits once and then deals damage over multiple rounds instead of all damage up front, which can be very useful for PvE. Ice has multiple tank spells that reduce the amount of damage that enemy spells do to you or your team. Life has healing spells and can sustain or even revive your teammates from the brink of death or losing a fight. Balance has plenty of support spells in order to buff your team and bring out the most potential in the hitters on your team. Storm has extremely high burst damage with the trade-off of low health. Myth can summon minions and also has extremely strong debuff potential. And finally, Death has drain spells which heal back half of the damage that they do against opponents. Now that we're done talking about the basics, let's go into battle. Buffs are still the core of spell setup, but they have changed a little bit. Blades still increase damage by a certain percentage against all opponents affected by the hit. Traps increase the damage that only the target of the trap takes. Weaknesses reduce the amount of damage by a percent that all opponents take. Auras temporarily boost stats for 4 rounds on one caster. Bubbles boost stats of particular schools as long as the bubble is active and can be replaced by anyone in the sigil. Stacking these buffs effectively is how you play the game and beat bosses. Spells like Sharpened Blade or Potent Trap allow you to increase the effectiveness of blades and traps while also letting you stack additional blades and traps. I would also like to note that the Shadow spell system has been reworked recently, and a new change will take place when the Darkmoor World update comes out. Shadow spells require you to use Shadow pips. Shadow pips are accrued over multiple rounds and are dependent on your Shadow rating versus your enemy's Shadow rating. The higher the difference, the faster you get Shadow pips. Shadow spells will be enchanted after the new update, which means that you'll have to merge a Shadow creature spell with the spell you'd like to become the Shadow version of itself. However, this Shadow version will also require a condition to be met in order to face no backlash, or you'll need to end the fight before the condition is required. Upon merging these spells, the new shadow spells will deal a large amount of damage and can even be further enchanted. However, they require a shadow pip, which can take multiple rounds to accrue and is still unreliable. You can check your progress on getting a shadow pip mid-battle by looking at the shadow gauge above your name. I would like to note that shadow spells should be your finisher, not your starter, in order to be able to avoid backlash and other negative effects that are coming with the new change. Then, to touch on gambits, gambits either help you deal high damage or additional benefits only if certain conditions are met. For example, Fire Scion deals double damage from 1120 fire damage to 2240 fire damage, but only if the enemy has 6 or more traps on them. Oni spells deal bigger damage if you have multiple traps or weaknesses. Life King Arthur puts a heal over time on you and clears up to 3 damage over times on you as the caster. This rewards setting up and planning and not just random button pressing. You could consider these conditional spells. They're spells that add effects based on your status, like spells that hit and heal depending on if you clear a certain amount of dots. You can hit and cleanse, or you can hit and remove dots. Now to talk about spellments. Spellments let you upgrade spells into different versions, not just stronger versions. You can, in rare cases, reduce pip costs, increase raw damage, add conditions like gambits, strengthen dots, or change the school of damage that it deals. For example, the spell Leprechaun can either do more instant damage, or it deals less upfront damage but has higher damage over time. Spellments are essentially build customizations and upgrades. I would also like to note the fact that they unlock lore spells, which cost 35 spellments to upgrade. Lore spells cost a school pip along with regular pips, so Arc Mastery, which we talked about, are super important in order to be able to use lore spells. To get spellments, you can complete ritual cantrip chests, which require 3 magic touches from 3 separate people, or you can defeat certain bosses which drop certain ranked spellments. The best area to go for the best spellments is Celestia, as it drops rank 7 spellments, which is very important to strengthen up your regular AoE. Finally, I want to talk about some changes to critical, block, and damage scaling. Critical is no longer just double damage if you hit a crit. Critical instead adds a % of damage depending on your critical stat versus your enemy's critical stat. Meanwhile, something like block reduces the amount of bonus damage applied depending on your enemy's critical rating. So instead of just hitting, critting, and then instantly winning, it's more like when you hit, bonus damage is applied fairly based on stats. This makes combat more consistent and less RNG. One final topic I'd like to talk about is pip conversion. If you cast a spell and overpay in pips, you can actually convert the excess pip back into a regular pip. This rewards building up high pip spells and fast pip generation. However, this is also a chance and isn't exactly guaranteed to happen either. When editing this video, I realized that I left out an important new system, Magic Weaving. Magic Weaving was a new addition with the Selenopolis update and allows you to pick a sub-school on top of your main school. Every school has the option to pick between 6 other schools of magic to weave with, but not their own. Unfortunately, you can't be a double storm or a double death wizard. Weaving introduces new spells that are mixed between the 2 schools and often include spells that have gambits or utility. For example, any school that weaves with Storm, besides for balance, gets a 45% double blade with Storm and your own school that costs 2 pips. This system can be extremely useful, but to unlock these spells, you have to complete labors, which are extremely repetitive and grindy tasks that often have little to do with what you're working on at the current moment. Overall, the weaving system can be super useful, but pick your weave wisely. I'll make a future video talking about weaving and what I think each school should weave with. If this video helped you understand how Wizard101 actually works in 2025, make sure to like, subscribe, and tell me in the comments what school you main. I'll try and respond to as many comments as possible, and as always, have a good one, guys.